so that they too will desire you, want to know you. And it all comes through our Amanah, our faith, if you will. So today we're going to look into Abraham's Amanah. See, the story of Abraham is told in chapters 11 through 25 of the book of Genesis. Abraham's story is one of family, particularly children, and the land of Israel. Abraham was born and given the name Abram in the city of Ur in Babylon in the year of 1800 BCE. He was the son of Terach, an idol merchant. Right from his early childhood on, he questioned the idolatrous faith or Amanah of his father and always sought the truth. He eventually came to the realization that the entire universe was the work of a single creator, and he began to teach this belief to others. Abraham was the first person ever to be referred to as a Hebrew. The designation Hebrew refers to the fact that he descended from Iber, or Ivri in Hebrew, and that he came from the other side of the Euphrates River. Abraham tried to convince his father, Terah, of the folly of his idol worship. The Mishnah, or the rabbinic literature, tells the story that one day when Abraham was left alone to mind his father's idol store, he took a hammer and smashed all of them except for the largest one. He then placed the hammer in the hand of the latest remaining idol. And when his father returned to the store and saw the big mess and the financial loss that awaited him, he asked Abraham, "What in the world happened?" And Abraham calmly responded that all the idols got into a fight, and the big idol smashed all the other ones. And his father said, "Don't be ridiculous. Idols have no life or strength or power. They can't do anything." To which Abraham replied, "Aha! Then why do you worship them?" Eventually, the one true Elohim, or God, if you will, that Abraham had worshipped, called out to him and made him an offer. Abraham would leave his home and his family and head to a new land, Israel. Yahuwah would make him a great nation and Barak, or bless him. Abraham accepted this offer, and the Brit, or the covenant between Yahuwah and the Hebrew people, was established forever. Abraham eventually became concerned because he had no children and was growing old. Abraham's beloved wife Sarah, originally Sarai, knew that she was past her childbearing years, so she offered her maidservant Hagar as a wife to Abraham. This was commonplace in the region at that time. According to tradition, Hagar was a daughter of Pharaoh, given to Abraham during his travels in Egypt. She bore Abraham a son. His name was Ishmael, who, according to both Muslims and Hebraic tradition, is the ancestor of the Arabs we know today, the Muslims. See, Yahuwah changed Abram's high father name to Abraham, father of multitude, according to Genesis 17:5. And his wife's name from Sarai, which means my princess, to Sarah, the mother of nations, in Genesis 17:5. We know from history that the descendants of Abraham and Sarah formed many nations, including the Hebrews and the Muslims of today. When Abraham was 100 and Sarah was 90, Yahuwah promised Abraham a son by Sarah. It was then that Yahuwah changed his name to Abraham, which means father of many, and her name to Sarah, meaning princess. See, Sarah bore Abraham a son, Isaac, a name derived from the word laughter. See, Hebrew people Abraham died at the age of 175. So there should be no mistake or misunderstanding whatsoever. The Torah specifies exactly which land Yahuwah was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his sons. It was the land of the Canaanites, the Camarites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Raphaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Geshenites, the Jebusites. See, Israel encompasses all of those lands that we know today. Abraham arrived in the land of Israel, then called Canaan, and traveled throughout the land of Israel for many years. In Genesis 15, we come to one of the high water marks of the Tanakh, or the Old Testament, if you will. Summarizing for us in verse 6, then he believed in Yahuwah, and he reckoned it to him as righteousness. See, the answer is in Genesis 15, 4 and 6. And beloved, the word of Yahuwah came to him, saying, this one shall not be your heir, but one who will come from your own body shall be your heir. Then he brought him outside and said, look now towards the Shemayim, or the heavens, and count the stars if you are able to number them. And he said to him, you shall your descendants be. And he believed Yahuwah, and he accounted it to him for righteousness. According to the strong, and the word that becomes the place here is Strong 666, which is Teseska, honesty, justice, and merit. That's what the righteousness means. This extraordinary, unwavering belief that Abraham had in Yahuwah's power and promises was what Paul recounted. Who, contrary to hope, in hope believed, so that he became the father of many nations, according to what was spoken. So shall your descendants be. And not being weak in Amanah, or faith, if you will, he did not consider his own body already dead, since he was about 100 years old, and the deadness of Sarah's womb. He did not waver at the promise of Yahuwah through unbelief, but was strengthened in Amanah, giving esteem to Yahuwah, and being fully convinced that what he had promised, he was also able to perform, according to Romans 4, 18 and 21. Paul noted that Abraham's belief was unhampered by the fact that he was almost 100 years old. He was not weak in Amanah, or faith. He was strong in his Amanah. Amanah is a deep conviction that Yahuwah's words are true and that Yahuwah will perform all that he has promised. Abraham simply believed that Yahuwah would do what he said. The same for you and I. We need to believe what his word says. What he is declaring to you and I, we have to believe it. That's our Amanah. That's our faith, that all of this is built upon. See, nothing is too hard for Yahuwah. Nothing is impossible for Yahuwah. This is an example for us today that our Amanah, or our faith, should be strong in Yahuwah. Up to this point, Abraham's Amanah has been more general in its nature. It has rested primarily upon the call of Yahuwah, as recorded in chapter 12. But now Yahuwah said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, and go to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will barak you, and I will make your name great. So Abraham departed as Yahuwah had spoken to him, and Lot went with him, according to Genesis 12, 1 through 2, as well as verse 4. See, Yahuwah seldom allows our Amanah to remain general. And so we face crisis points which bring our Amanah from the abstract to the concrete, and from the general to the specific, such as the case with Abram in this chapter. Hebrews 11:8 tells us, What was so extraordinary about this departure? By Amanah, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. He's being led. Just like you and I are being led according to our Amanah. Abraham departed and he trusted and believed Yahuwah that he would guide him and his family into uncharted territories. There was no questioning and no wavering. He showed his Amanah by departing. This was a profound act of Amanah. After Abraham came into the land of Canaan, he continued to be a stranger and a pilgrim in that foreign land. But he believed Yahuwah, who had promised that one day he and his descendants would inherit that land. So we find in Genesis 13, verses 14 through 17, which records that promise to Abraham. And Yahuwah said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift your eyes now and look from this place where you are northward, southward, eastward, and westward. All the land which you see I give to you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you. He's given us our land. He's given us our inheritance too, as we begin to walk in Amanah with him, as he begins to guide and direct our paths. He's also going to show that which he's given to us as our inheritance, which is this eternal kingdom that he has given to us. This is his promise to you and I. In addition to appreciating the promised baraka of land for his descendants, Abraham grew in his Amanah towards Yahuwah and personally anticipated a spiritual reward. Hebrews 11, 9 through 10 records this process. By Amanah, he dwelt in the land of promise as a foreign country. He dwelling in the tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him and the same promise, for he waited for the city which was foundations, which builders and makers were given to him by Yahuwah. He's the maker of it all. He owns it all. So that which he has reserved for you and I is built by his own hands. And it's something special for you and I. And we have to walk in this journey until we accomplish it, till we reach our destination. Whatever that may be in this life, but we already have an idea what the reward will be after this. So, but we have to do our best during this time to allow our Amanah to grow, just as Abraham's grew. He didn't start out with all of this. It was given to him as a gift, but it grows as you walk in it. The further and more you walk with him, the more you trust in him, the more you believe in him, the more your Amanah grows. Abraham, along with other people of Amanah, anticipated a permanent city and a country to come. These all died in Amanah, not having received the promises, but having seen them far off, were assured to them. They embraced them, and they confessed them that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. But now they desired a better, that is, a heavenly country, a kadosh place. Therefore, Yahuwah is not ashamed to be called their Elohim, for he has prepared a city for them, according to Hebrews 11, 13 through 16. See, we too live our lives as strangers and pilgrims on this earth, waiting with patience in Amanah for the kingdom of Yahuwah to be established on the earth, ruling from Jerusalem. We too are sojourners, desiring a better heavenly country, a country that is coming in the future. Abraham's faith was tested. Ours is tested as well. We see this test in Hebrews 11:17, which relates the supreme test of Abraham's Amanah, where it says, by Amanah, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he received the promise, offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that Yahuwah was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense, in a way that he's talking about the revelation of his only begotten son, Yahusha. See, Abraham must have believed that Yahuwah had a very good reason for asking him to sacrifice Isaac, and that somehow Isaac would have been raised from the dead to fulfill the promise that Yahuwah had made concerning him. Abraham's willingness to give up his son was similar to Yahuwah, the Father's willingness to give his only begotten son, Yahusha, as a sacrifice. We who are of Amanah of Abraham must also believe that Yahuwah is able to do what he says also. Since Abraham's Amanah is so often mentioned in Scripture, there are many lessons we can learn. First of all, Abraham was justified by Amanah. Yahuwah has ordained that all should be justified by Amanah, or faith. That means we are declared blameless in his sight through the shed blood of his sacrifice, which was given by his son, Yahusha HaMashiach, and by Amanah in Yahuwah. Romans 4:9-11 explains the significance of the righteousness of Amanah. For we say that Amanah, or faith, was counted to Abraham for righteousness. How then was it accounted? While he was circumcised or uncircumcised? Not while circumcised, but while uncircumcised. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of Amanah, which he had while still uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all who believe, through their uncircumcised, that righteousness might be imputed to them also. So whether one is Hebrew or not, those who have the righteousness of Amanah, righteousness imputed to them by Yahuwah, they are the children of Abraham, according to verse 12. All must have Amanah, or faith, as we walk similar to Abraham. We must remember that the promises of Yahuwah given to Abraham are realized through Amanah. Abraham and his seed, his true descendants who have Amanah, will inherit the promises that Yahuwah gives to Abraham and his seed. See, as Romans 4:13 says, for the purpose of this promise, that he would be the heir of the world, was not to Abraham or his seed through the law, but through the righteousness or the obedience in Amanah. See, the promises given to Abraham are a part of the message. Abraham heard and he believed. Galatians 3:8 says, and the scriptures, foreseeing that Yahuwah would justify the Gentiles by Amanah, spoke to Abraham beforehand, saying, in all of the nations shall be Baruch, or blessed. So then those who are of Amanah are Baruch, or blessed, with believing Abraham. The scripture being quoted is a combination of a promise in Genesis 12 and verse 3 and 22:18. See, this is a good example for us to hear today. Not all obey, but they have not all obeyed. For Isaiah says, Yahuwah, who has believed our report. So that Amanah comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Yahuwah, according to Romans 10:16-17. In Abraham's seeds, all the nations of the earth would be Baruch, or blessed. We are Baruch through the righteous seed of Abraham, who is Yahushua HaMashiach. See, there is a difference between trusting in our own works and trusting in Yahusha in order to be justified and saved. Abraham is our lesson in this regard. But do you want to know, O foolish man, that Amanah without works is dead? Was not Abraham justified by works when he offered Isaac, his son, on the altar? Do you see that Amanah was working together with his works? And by works, Amanah was made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled, which says, Abraham believed Yahuwah, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. And he was called the friend of Yahuwah. You see then that a man is justified by works and not by Amanah only, according to James 2:20-24. Our Amanah, our faith, is perfected as we do good works, which is obedience to the Torah and the commandments. Works is a deed or an action that carries out and completes something. Work in Hebrew is abad, which means to work, to serve, and also to worship. So we should do good works in Amanah, as our father Abraham did. As John 8:39 says, if you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. Abraham did many works that demonstrated his strong Amanah in Yahuwah. Yahusha told the Hebrew leaders of his day, but now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from Yahuwah. Abraham did not do this in verse 40. Abraham believed the truth from the mouth of Yahuwah's messengers and from the mouth of Yahuwah. See, we need to do what Abraham did. We need to believe that Yahuwah can do the impossible and that nothing is too hard for Yahuwah. We need to believe in Yahuwah's power and his promises without wavering. We need to believe and be willing to be obedient to Yahuwah, to come out of this world and depart from sin. We also need to trust Yahuwah's guidance and direction in leading us into uncharted territory. As we journey through this life as pilgrims and strangers in the world, we need to look in Amanah to the coming kingdom of Yahuwah and the New Jerusalem. Our Amanah is the future inheritance of the world to come, and this should motivate us to live by Amanah. We also need to trust Yahuwah's guidance and direction in leading us into uncharted territories. We need to believe him. We need to trust him in every area of our lives. And finally, through Abraham's example, we see that we must demonstrate our Amanah by being obedient to Yahuwah and doing good works that demonstrates our Amanah. Our Amanah, or our faith, is perfected by doing good works, being obedient to what Scripture declares we ought to do. Having Amanah and doing good works is a living Amanah. We will show you my Amanah, or my faith, by my works. What are the works? Your labor, what you put your labor to, your attention, your actions, your deeds. All of these things are done through obedience. James 2:18, works is a deed or an action that carries out and completes something. Abraham certainly showed us all of his Amanah by his works. Are you going to follow Abraham's example? This is the most important step you can take. May Yahuwah help you make these critical changes in your life so you can inherit the same reward as Abraham when Yahusha returns and establishes the kingdom of Yahuwah here on earth. Yahuwah's word to Abram are far from what we would have expected in such circumstances. Do not fear, Abram. I am a shield to you. Your reward shall be very great, according to Genesis 15:1. But why should Abram possibly be afraid? He had just won a great victory over the Chalmudar and the three other eastern kings, according to Genesis 14, and 15. Because of this, he had no doubt. He received considerable recognition, even from the pagan kings of Sodom, according to Genesis 14:17, as well as 21-24. So what fear could haunt Abraham's Amanah at such a time of victory? Is it possible that Abram feared future military reprisals from the ones that he took over and had victory over, and his allies? He may have won the battle, But had he won the war? Would the word of Yahuwah to Abram, I am a shield to you, could very well be aimed at subsiding this fear of future military conflict? This cannot be Abram's greatest concern, especially in the view of the remaining verses. Abraham's victory was not so sweet in the light of one question which seemed to overshadow all else. What good is success without a successor? Abraham's response to Yahuwah confirms this. And Abraham said, Yahuwah Elohim, what will you give me since I am childless? And the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abraham said, since you have given no offspring to me, one born in my house is my heir. Genesis 15:2-3. In the ancient Hebrew times, there was a well-attested practice to ensure an heir, even if no son were born to the man. The childless couple would adopt one of the servants born into the household. This son would care for them in their old age and would inherit their possessions and property at the time of their death. At this low point in Abraham's Amanah, it was the best for which he had thought he could hope. Yahuwah had promised Abraham far more than that which he could provide for himself. Eliezer was not the heir that he had promised. His descendants were to come from his own reproductive cells. He would have a son of his own. Then, behold, the word of Yahuwah came to him, saying, this man will not be your heir, but one who shall come forth from your own body, he shall be your heir. Genesis 15:4. To reassure Abraham, Yahuwah took him outside and drew his attention to the stars and the Shemayim, for the heavens. This is how numerous the offspring of Abraham would be through his son that would surely come, according to verse 5. Verse 6 describes Abraham's response to divine revelation. Then he believed Yahuwah, and he reckoned it to him as righteousness. Genesis 15:6. In the book of Hebrews, we read, by Amanah, Abraham, when he was called, obeyed by going out to the place which he was to receive for an inheritance, and he went out, not knowing where he was going. Hebrews 11:8. Here the writer in Hebrews intends us to understand that Abraham believed Yahuwah. Before chapter 15, even as he left Ur, he entered into the land of Canaan. The solution is not as difficult as it may seem. The grammar of verse 6 indicates that Abraham's Amanah did not begin here. Not only did he previously believe, he continued to believe. Then our translations may therefore be a little too strong. Let's look at this. There's three things about this Amanah, or faith, of Abraham. First of all, it was a personal Amanah, or faith. By this, I mean that Abraham believed in Yahuwah. He did not merely believe about Yahuwah, but in him. Herein is the distinction between true believers and those who are opposing, genuinely reborn by Amanah in the person of Yahushua. Second, while Abram lived in Yahuwah, his Amanah was based upon the promises of Yahuwah. Many believed in the Elohim of their own definition. Abraham believed in the Elohim of revelation. The covenant Yahuwah made here with Abram in verse 12 gave Abraham specific proposition on which to base his Amanah and his practice. Number 3, Abraham's works did not initiate his salvation, but they did demonstrate it. According to James 2:14, also Abram's Amanah was related to a very practical need, the need for a son. Yahuwah does not ask us to believe in the abstract, but in the everyday matters of life. When Moses or Moshe says that Abram's Amanah was reckoned for righteousness, it does not mean that Abram's Amanah was in some fashion exchanged for righteousness. Abram's Amanah, like ours today, was not something which he conjured up by mental or spiritual effort, Amanah itself is a gift, according to Ephesians 2, 8, and 9. His Amanah was in the coming child and offspring, one whom would be the Messiah. It was because Abram looked to the one Elohim would provide for righteousness that Yahuwah declared him to be righteous. So technically speaking, salvation and Amanah are a gift, but righteousness comes through the legal process of imputation. Abraham was legally declared righteous by Yahuwah because he trusted in him who was righteous. The righteousness of Yahusha imputed to Abram because of his Yahuwah given Amanah is what saved him. See, Yahuwah places Amanah upon us. He's the one that gives us the ability to believe and to trust in him. Without that gift, we wouldn't be able to in our own abilities. It's the leading of that and the impartation of that Ruach that changes everything for us. And that's what increases our Amanah as well. See, Yahuwah's way of saving men is not new. It has not changed from the Tanakh to the New Testament or the New Covenant. Yahuwah has always saved men by chen, or grace, if you will, through Amanah. There is no other way. While Abraham was saved by Amanah in the one who would come, we are saved by Amanah in this one who has come. That's the only difference. He believed in the one that would come. We believe in the one has come already. The one that established our covenant, the new covenant. So having dealt with Abram's greatest needs for reassurance, namely that one of an heir, Yahuwah went on to strengthen Abram's Amanah concerning the land he would possess. And he said to him, I am Yahuwah who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to possess it. Genesis 15 and 7. Abram's question does not seem to reflect disbelief, but wonder at how this will be accomplished. And he said, Oh, Yahuwah Elohim, how may I know that I shall possess it? Genesis 15 and 8. The tone seems similar to that of Miriam, or Mary, if you will. When told she will be the mother of the Messiah, and Miriam said to the Malachim, or the angel, how can this be since I am a virgin? Luke 1 and 34. Yahuwah did not rebuke Abram for his question, but confirmed his promise by a covenant. So he said to him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer and a 3-year-old female goat and a 3-year-old ram and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. Then he brought all of these to him and cut them in two and laid each half opposite the other. But he did not cut the bird, and the bird of prey came down upon the carcass, and Abram drove it away. Genesis 15, verse 9 through 11. See, in the ancient world of Abram, legal and binding agreements were not put on paper, written by lawyers, and signed by the parties involved. Instead, the two parties would arrive at a mutual acceptable agreement, and then they would formalize it in the form of a covenant. See, the covenant was sealed by the dividing of an animal or animals. In fact, the technical term literally means go cut a covenant. The animals was cut in half, and the two parties would pass between the halves. It seems that in this oath, the men acknowledged that the fate of their animal should be theirs if they broke the terms of their agreement. So we see that these verses do not describe the process of animal sacrifice, but the legal act of making a binding agreement, according to verses 9 through 11, to set the stage for the final ratification of this covenant. Sometimes it seems to have passed between the preparation of the animals and the final ratification, verse 11. See, towards the end of this delay, Abram fell into a deep trance-like state. Now, when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, And behold, terror and great darkness fell upon him. Genesis 15 and 12. The terror and the darkness, in my estimate, was more than the awareness of Yahuwah's presence. I believe it was the normal response to the horror of the revelation of the treatment of Abram's children in the next 400 years. Abram's descendants would possess the land of Canaan, but not until after a considerable delay and many difficulties. And Yahuwah said to Abram, "Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in the land that is not theirs. There they will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. But I will also judge the nations whom they will serve, and afterwards they will come out with many possessions." Genesis 15, 13, and 14. Very carefully, Egypt remains unnamed as the land where this bondage would occur. Not only did Abram not need to know this, but such knowledge could have been detrimental before this bondage came to pass. And a lot of times it's the same for you and I. If he revealed all the details, it would be more of a problem. It would be detrimental to us than if we go through the problem and he brings us through it, which builds our Amanah. It was no problem for those who read these words of Moshe or Moses to know the land of which he spoke. Indeed, they had just came forth from Egypt. What a strange thing it must have been for those Israelites who were brought out of Egypt to read this prophecy, which so accurately described their experience. There seems to be two reasons for the 400-year delay before the land of Canaan would be possessed. First, the children of Abram, or Abraham, if you will, would not yet be able or numerous enough to possess the land either. Also, the people of the land were not yet wicked enough to throw out. Then in the fourth generation, they shall return here, for the iniquities of the Amorites is not yet complete, according to Genesis 15 and 16. Here is an important principle, and the one that governs the possession of the land of Canaan. Yahuwah owns the land of Canaan, according to Leviticus 25 and 23. You know, he owns everything. And he lets it out to those who will live according to righteousness. When Israel forgot their Elohim and practiced the abomination of the Canaanites, in 2 Chronicles 28, 3, as well as 33 and 2, Yahuwah put them out of the land also. In the light of the present debate over who has legitimate claim to the land of Israel, let us remember this principle. It is Yahuwah who owns the land, not the Hebrews nor the Arabs. Yahuwah will not allow the Hebrews to possess the land and live wickedly any more than he will the Gentiles. Over the next 400 or more years from the time of this revelation, two programs were simultaneously at work. The Canaanites were growing more and more wicked, and their day of reckoning was steadily approaching. At the same time, the nation of Israel was about to be born, growing rapidly in numbers and in spiritual maturity, preparing for the day of possession. And that's a lesson that we can learn for ourselves as well. Is it not a picture of our own day? Has Yahuwah not said that in the last days wickedness would intensify? 2 Thessalonians 2, 1 through 12, 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 9, 2 Peter 3, 3. At the same time, Yahusha is purifying and preparing us for his return. Ephesians 5, 26 through 27, Colossians 1, 21 through 23, 1 Peter 1, 6 through 7. The wicked will receive recompense for their sins, and the chosen believers will be rewarded for righteousness. When Yahuwah has spoken to Abram peaceably, death at that ripe old age and the fate of his offspring, he ratified the covenant concerning the land that would belong to Israel. And it came about when the sun had set that it was very dark, and behold, there appeared a smoking oven, and a flaming torch was passed between these pieces. On that day, Yahuwah made a covenant with Abram, saying, "To your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt as far as the great river, and the river Euphrates, and the Canaanite, and the Kenzanite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittites, and the Perizzite, all of the ites, Izites, whatever you want to call them. We find this all is named in here in Genesis 15, 17 through 21. See, this covenant is distinctive because only Yahuwah and the appearance of a smoke oven and flaming torch passed between the divided carcasses of the animal. This was done to signify that the covenant was unilateral and unconditional. No conditions were placed upon Abram for its fulfillment. The geographical boundaries have been clearly defined, and even the people who were to be dispossessed were named. Yahuwah committed himself to a very specific course of action. What more reassurance could be asked? The bottom line for Abram was that Yahuwah's promise was not much more specific. It was now much more specific to him. It was very clear to him. He understood clearly. This is the place where we need to get in our walk. We need to understand things much more clearly, much more specific. When you find that, then you can be focused on moving forward towards that. This is what we need to be seeking in our own walk, in our prayers, that we are led and guided to fulfill our destinies, our purpose that we were created for, so that we can walk in our Amanah and be a baraka to Yahuwah, through Yahushua Mashiach, and achieve that which we were created to achieve. See, Abraham would have a son of his own through whom the baraka would be poured out. Abram's offspring would be very numerous and in time would possess the land. But before this, they would go through a time of delay and great difficulty. Sound familiar? We see delays, we see difficulties. The essence of Abram's Amanah was that while he waited for the promise of the future baraka, he was content in the meantime with the presence of Yahuwah. Abram did not come out on the short end of the stick either. Abram's great reward was Yahuwah himself. I am a shield to you, your very great reward. Genesis 15:1. He is your shield, and he is your very great reward when you plug in and you receive him and you really pursue him with all of your heart. He is your shield as well. He protects you. He provides for you. He's all of those things which the scripture says he is for you. That's where your Amanah has to be strengthened to believe that he is and he will do what he says he will do. Our theology has been greatly distorted in recent days. We are invited to come to Yahushua as Savior because of all that he can and will do for us. We may have come to him for his presence rather than his presence, if you will. If you're coming, and what I mean by that, if you can see it in the writing, you'll understand. Presence is well, meaning a present, a gift, the baraka, if you will. So if that's what you're pursuing is the baraka itself, then you're missing the greater reward, which is his presence. Once you have his presence, all of the other things come to place. So we have to adjust sometimes our thinking, pursue the giver and not the gift. Abraham was neither cheated nor shortchanged in the delay of Yahuwah, and in the difficulties he and his offspring faced. Abraham was Baruch, or blessed. For if Yahuwah is our portion, that is enough. The ultimate good in life is not freedom from pain of suffering or poverty, but knowing Yahuwah. Nevertheless, I am continually with you. You have taken hold of my right hand. With your counsel, you will give me, and afterwards receive me to Chen, or glory. Whom have I in the Shemayim, or the heavens, but you? And besides you, I desire nothing on earth. My flesh and my heart may fail, but Yahuwah is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. But as for me, the nearness of Yahuwah is my good. I have made Yahuwah Elohim my refuge, that I may take all your works. Psalms 73, 23 through 26, as well as verse 28. Here, then, is the key to understanding the baraka, that is to be found in the delay and the difficulty. While riches often lead us away from Yahuwah, according to Psalm 73, 7 through 12, affliction draws us closer, Psalm 73, 25 through 26. If nearness to Yahuwah is the highest good, then suffering is good also. If it enhances our intimacy with Him, and the love of money is evil, if it inclines us away from the good of knowing Yahuwah. That, I believe, is the key to Genesis 15. Abraham's Amanah is strengthened by specific revelations concerning his son and the soil his offspring will inherit. But even beyond this, he is brought to the realization that Amanah cannot be separated from suffering. For Yahuwah uses this to draw men into intimate fellowship with himself. Amanah is seldom strengthened by success, which we find in verse 1, but by believing Yahuwah in the midst of delays and difficulties, our Amanah is strengthened. What then shall we say to these things? If Yahuwah is for us, who is against us? He who did not spare his own son, but delivered him up for all of us, how will he not also with him freely give us all things? Who will bring a charge against you who is chosen? Yahuwah is the one who justifies, who is the one who condemns. Yahusha HaMashiach, he who died, yes, rather, who was raised, who is at the right hand of Yahuwah, who also intercedes for us. Who shall separate us from the love of the Messiah? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or darkness or peril or sword? Just as it is written, for your sake we are being put to death all day long. We were considered as sheep to be slaughtered. But in all these things we overwhelmingly conquer through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor Malachim, or angels, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor heights, nor depths, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of Yahuwah, which is in Yahushua HaMashiach, our Master. Romans 8, 31 through 39. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witness surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Yahushua, the author and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the stake for the tree, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of Yahuwah. For consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you may not grow weary and lose heart. You have not yet resisted to the point of shedding blood in your striving against sin, and you have forgotten the exhortation which is addressed to you as sons. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of Yahuwah, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For those whom Yahuwah loves, he disciplines. He scourges even every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you endure. Yahuwah deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Furthermore, we had earthly fathers to discipline us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more rather be subject to the Father of the Ruach? and live? Or they disciplined us for a short time as seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his kadoshness or his holiness. All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful, but sorrowful. Yet to those who have been trained by it, afterwards it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. Therefore strengthen the hands that are weak and the knees that are feeble, and make straight the paths for your feet, so that the limb which is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. Hebrews 12, 1 and 13. Thank you for this message today. We're so grateful and so thankful that you reveal to us through your word, through your scriptures, the truth of the matter that we can put into practice today in our own lives. We trust in you, and this has encouraged and strengthened our Amanah in you. And now we can walk in a different perspective, in a different light, and we can expect different in our lives. You have done such great things already, Yahuwah, and us, and all of us that are following you. All of your chosen Yahudim. Continue this great and mighty work in us. Let us be the light of this world. Let us be the salt of this earth. Let us bring the truth of your revelation of who you are, your name, and your truth of your scriptures, that we may live according to that, so that our Amanah and you can continue to grow and grow and grow until we become strong enough in you that we do not no longer doubt you. We barak you, Yahuwah. We worship you this day, and we give you the rest of our lives. Mold and shape us and purify us and make us into that vessel that is worthy of you. Barak your name, Yahuwah, today and forevermore. And we give you all the praise and all the honor and all the esteem that's due to you alone. Through Yahushua HaMashiach, we glorify and honor you this day. Todah, Rabbi Yahuwah. Todah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.